So thanks again, Ben, for joining us today. I've told the group a little bit about you, especially your side project that turned into like a business. It was really interesting, but also you have like an interesting background getting into tech. So I thought I'd just kind of open up, like want to introduce like who you are, what you do currently.
Yeah. So I'm Ben. I'm a engineering manager at a company called Byte. Pretty recently got into management. My job before this was lead developer, and I was just promoted to senior manager. But yeah, before that I was a self-taught developer. I learned programming while I was a crane operator working on billboards. And before that, I was also doing, construction type work. And the reason I kind of found Brian, I just randomly sent him a message on LinkedIn, is I had a lot of problems with, you know, got in trouble with the law and trouble with drugs, that type of stuff. And just one of Brian's posts just kind of hit me. So I sent him a random message on LinkedIn saying, I like what you're doing. And I've been watching him on LinkedIn since then, and pretty much everything he's been saying, I agree with.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, you have an amazing story. I was like, when I heard it, I'm like, wow, that's a pretty wild transition. We have like pretty much everybody in this group, and I think most of the people here are coming from a kind of non-CS background and stuff too. So like how long ago, first of all, did you start learning to code? Like when did that happen?
About 10 years ago, I just really didn't like my job. Like I was working on billboards, which, not for everybody, but it was fine with me. But the people I was working with, I just didn't like them at all, and ended up losing that job because I got in a fight with my manager. And at that point I was ready for my first coding job, and I didn't get it right away, but I had to take a big pay cut. But because crane operators pay pretty well, as
That's
far as
right.
construction workers go. But so yeah, I had to take a pay cut, and it took a while to get my first job, but it was definitely worth it.
That's yeah, man. It's such a cool story in general. Like so like when you started, like what was your stack? Like how did you teach yourself? Did you like through Code Academy or courses or boot camp?
Yeah, it was all self-taught. There was no boot camp, but
Oh,
uh I was learning mostly through YouTube videos and tutorial type things, and I really took it to heart, like build your own things, right? So then
yeah.
I found Free Code Camp was brand new when I was first starting. I don't know if you guys are on the Free Code Camp or not, but to me, Free Code Camp was very, very simple. Like it starts out at like, here's how to make a div red, but now make it blue, that type of thing. And you just basically could copy paste your way through that stuff. But what was really cool about Free Code Camp is the projects, and they have good project ideas for you to use.
That's yeah, that kind of leads me to my next thing. Like most people here are just, I think, especially in this particular group, they're either looking to start their career or they just started maybe their first like job or something. What's some advice that you would give to developers currently that are trying to get into tech, like as a web developer?
Yeah, I mean, right now, obviously, you've seen the tech layoffs, and it's probably a lot tougher than it was when I started. But the best thing that you can do is have a project that you can talk about, and doesn't really matter what it is. But what if I'm hiring, I do hiring. We are still hiring at my company. Unfortunately, we're not hiring junior developers right now, but when I'm looking for a junior developer, I want to see a project, and I can ask you how you did it, what problems you ran into, that type of stuff. Like that's my interview style in general. Is I want to know. I don't really care what's in your resume. I'll use that as the first talking point, but then you might mention, React, And then I'll say, okay, let's talk about React a little bit more. Let's see how well you understand that. And it works, maybe it might be tough when you're first starting up, but just for an example, like I don't use Ruby on Rails, never have. But if someone says I use Ruby on Rails, well, I can ask them, okay, well, how do you handle authentication with Ruby on Rails? And then I can compare it to what I know in my other stack and stuff like that. So it's really just try to create your own thing. You can't just do tutorials all day because you don't run into the problems you will when you try to branch off and take your own path.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, kind of spot on. And I'm curious, we're both managers, we both hire people. And I can tell people like my view, like when you get a resume and you're going through it and you see a bunch of like links to deployed sites, are you checking any of those sites, or are you just kind of going, oh, you are?
Oh yeah, I am.
Okay. You're better than me. What do you look for when you're looking at those deployed sites?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I do is check if it's mobile responsive, right? Because I mean, it's 2023 now. Back in 2018, I was saying, it's 2018. Of course, it's got to be mobile responsive, right? So I mean, it's fine if you're just building a project and your focus is not CSS. That's fine, but don't put it on your resume if it looks like crap when you make the screen smaller. That type of thing. It all depends. If it's a blog site or something, I don't have any eye for design, so I'll scroll through your blog. But if you have a application that you're showing off, I'll click around and try to break it and see if you did the minimal amount of making this thing good or not.
Now, let me ask you one follow-up to that. If it has authentication, are you even signing in?
Probably not. I mean, I'm not gonna create an account on your demo site, but
yeah, I just was confirming because okay, you do a little more due diligence than I do. To be honest, sometimes I was going through a stack of 20 resumes recently, and I'm like, I'm not gonna click on a single one of these projects.
Yeah, and I have a pretty good system. Well, I don't know if system's the right word, but I have a guy that screens the resumes for me, right? And then I get a list of 5 to 7 resumes. When he gets 200, I get 5. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's the other kind of dirty secret. Sometimes your resume doesn't even end up on a hiring manager's desk.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. Jin Shu has a question, says, how do you stay motivated at this like level in your career?
Yeah, so my motivation as a manager is different than my motivation as a programmer, but I still do literally every day. I mean, I should say probably like 340 days a year I'm working on my business after work. So I mean, I'm pretty motivated there, but the motivation as a manager is really just all about my friends, right? My people. I want to make sure they're taken care of, but I don't know that I really have a secret about the motivation. I mean, obviously, when I first started out, I just liked programming. That was my motivation, is I wanted to do it. And after that, then I had this website that I put it online and got 1,000 users in a month. And that was awesome. That was very motivating. And then it went to 10,000 a month. And then it went to 100,000 a month. And, now it's about 1 million a month. And, that at this point, it definitely still motivating, but I don't know that I use motivation as much as you might think. It's just more of routine, discipline, whatever you want to call it. That's what I do, is I work on programming.
Let's get to the okay, you just hit on the very interesting part. Everybody wants to know, especially me, more about this. This is nuts. So walk us through, first of all, what is this what is this business that you have outside of as a manager that you do?
Yeah, it's called officialtypingtest.com. Let me
Okay.
just put it in the chat.
I just used that, by the way.
Was that on purpose? Did you use it because like you had to, like you were asked to use it?
Yeah, well, I wanted to improve my typing speed. So I Googled and I've been using it to improve my typing speed. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No problems. Yeah. So when I was, basically before I got my first programming job, it was just an idea, right? I wanted a project to work on. I don't play video games. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I was on my computer all the time. And sometimes I got a little burnt out on programming. I'd be up till 2 a.m. programming, and somehow I found these typing test sites and see how fast you can type. And the ones I was using were really bad. Like there was a lot of issues. And basically what I said is, well, it's good enough side project for me. Let's make a typing test that doesn't suck. And then so that was what I did. It was only front end. There was nothing to it except, it was jQuery and type into the box and then check your answers at the end. And that's basically all it was. And that was the first iteration of it. And then I made it to where, we could highlight what word you're on. But that gets complicated, right? It's like if somebody accidentally skips a word, we want to let them skip that word. If you accidentally forget to type a word, let's move the highlighted word forward and let you continue on where you are. And, if you hit backspace, obviously it needs to go back to highlight the word before that type of thing. So, I mean, it was a project that was very hard for me to do at the time. But, then like I said, I eventually put it on the internet and it started getting a lot of views. So I put ads on the site and started making, very little money, but it was cool watching it go up to, made 8 cents today. That type of thing. It was kind of cool. And then eventually I got more into, my learning, and I was able to add logins and, you could look at your history and that type of thing. And then I started selling these typing certificates. I didn't think anybody would buy them because people do give them away for free on other sites, but I just put it out there for $5 and people were buying them. And then I talked to this entrepreneur friend I had, who I said, well, raise it to $10 then if people are buying it at $5. And so I did that, and now it's up to $27, and I just don't feel like I want to raise it anymore, but people are buying them still. And then about 2 years ago, I had the idea of, I'm getting referrals, if you want to call it that, like these big corporations and departments, public service departments are recommending that people go to my site and do a typing test if they want to work. Excuse me. So like, yeah, basically the job description will say, go to official typing test and do a test to see, and it helped with the lockdowns as well, where they weren't doing in-person testing. But I got the idea, like, why don't I try to sell this program to corporations instead? Well, in addition to selling certificates to people, let's try to sell it to the HR department as a whole and let them, assign typing tests and manage their users, that type of thing. So I built that and I got a little bit of traction. I sold it to 3 counties in California, and they're paying a lot of money for my software now. So that's cool.
Wild.
I'm not a great salesperson, but I am pretty good at development, I guess.
That's pretty amazing to take a side project, and then Dina just said that 9/11 dispatchers use bin sites to help for their tests. That is amazing. I mean, and then the cool thing is you started like with really what like people would consider an MVP, minimally viable product,
Yep.
and that just was like, you just kept adding to it. Was it pretty janky at first when you released it?
Oh yeah, I mean, mostly I wouldn't say that the code was bad. Like the test worked great. That's one thing that I'm pretty good at is I'm able to QA my own work and make sure I catch most of the edge cases. But the design was horrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it looked like crap. But that's also some of the comments I got is like, this thing looks like it's from the 80s, but it also makes it look more real. You know, like not real isn't the right word, but like, you know, I bought the domain official typing test,
Yeah.
and the old ugly design, it matched.
It looks like an enterprise type application. Like this
Yeah.
looks like a government type
Yeah.
of thing. That's yeah, if it looked too cool, it'd be like, oh, this is some cool startup. Yeah, that's interesting how that kind of worked out. Jin Chu asked, what stacks are you using on this application? Are you still using jQuery?
There is still jQuery on it. I used jQuery at first, and then I moved it into Node, you know, Express, which is Node.js, and used EJS templates.
Oh, okay.
You know, I don't know if it's kind of getting out of date now, but you know, if you look up just a Express.js tutorial, they'll show you to like use our template system, that type of thing. And so I used EJS templates. Then when I started making my corporate side of things, I made it a React application on the front end. And right now I'm currently in the middle of moving everything over to TypeScript.
Ooh.
But the rest of the stack, I actually do maintain my own servers. I have Linux servers and use Nginx for the web server, and I got MySQL databases. And I don't know if I would really recommend that people learn that right off the bat, but learning Linux really helped me.
How'd you just learn? That's a lot of stuff. I mean, that's awesome. And like I realized over the years, I've kind of picked up a lot more back end things naturally, just from you kind of have to. When you deploy a web app or something, you typically have a back end. But did you do any other formal classes or courses to learn this stuff? Or is it just from doing?
It was mostly nothing formal, that's for sure. And I didn't really have any like in-person mentors either at first. It was really just YouTube type stuff.
Wow. That's pretty cool. The University of YouTube is like getting better and better. Like
Yeah.
every year though, for sure. There's a lot more excellent stuff on there. Because probably when you were starting too, like I remember in my first job looking up like what to expect the first day, and like nothing. Because like there was no articles really back then about as much as there are now. Like now there's a ton of information out there I feel like you can find. For people that are, you know, going into development now, like what would you recommend like as a stack that you think is like, here's probably what you should be learning nowadays as a front end or / web developer?
Yeah, I think React is going to be your safest bet. You know, Vue is very popular around the world, but pretty much every developer I know uses React. Every developer I know personally uses React on the front end right now. And, you know, so I couldn't recommend anything else. TypeScript is a very good thing to learn. Like I'm finding out more and more, you know, I'm interviewing a lot of people, and a lot of people still don't know TypeScript, which is fine. But the problem is a lot of these people are, you know, they went to college for it. So they've used C++ and they've used Java. Well, moving over to TypeScript is simple for them. For people like us that just literally only know JavaScript, moving to TypeScript is not as simple. So I would recommend that you start learning that. If it's really not as big a hurdle as it sounds, you know, you will go through a month or two where you hate TypeScript, but then you'll go through the rest of your life saying, I'm never using JavaScript without TypeScript again. And, you know, for me, Node.js is still what I would recommend. You know,
Yep.
a lot of people using Python for a lot of things, but Node.js is very versatile, and you wouldn't have any problem finding a job if you know React and Node and TypeScript.
It's a good point on the TypeScript. I've been avoiding it more. We have challenges within this group that they all have access to, and there's going to be more TypeScript ones coming out, and mostly with Node Express, but maybe I'll add more front end TypeScript things, because I do see that being like just a massive wave of TypeScript. It feels like has like come up more than usual. At first I thought it was not going to be as popular as it is now, but I feel like every other job wants TypeScript.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is awesome. I mean, I'm biased because I kind of picked up at first there was a question, would TypeScript win, or would Flow? Facebook had their own type system called Flow, and it was some pretty good arguments that Flow was actually better as far as type checking, but TypeScript just won. There's no question about it now, and you're pretty safe to learn that one.
Yeah. I mean, I have like Flow, honestly never even heard of it.
Yeah.
But last kind of question before I just open it up, if anybody else has them. If you do, please drop them in the chat. But just any kind of last words of advice for people, especially right now, that are dealing with, kind of what feels like a tough economy and trying to get their first web dev job. Any kind of parting words of advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, you can only control what you can control, right? So you got to put in applications, but also, if you can build something that gets popular, you might not need a job at all. There's a lot of people that have done that. Mine, if I took the income that I'm making now, I would have never had to get a coding job in the first place. But obviously, it took a long time for my little website to get up to where it's making good money. So I don't know that I'm not going to say just make a website and you never have to get a coding job, but it can't hurt. And if this is what you're going to do, you're going to be applying for coding jobs, well, you should probably be coding the rest of the time when you're not applying for jobs. So.
Sounds like a theme of consistency, like in both things, like whether it was getting the job, the website that like finally took off kind of crazy. I'm just last thing on that. Was it kind of like what I imagined to be like a period of not much traction and then like a huge hockey stick of like people, or was it just really gradual over time?
No, it was. I'm on my work computer, so I can't pull it up, but it was about 6 months of almost nothing. I get like 10 people to the site or whatever, and then just one day Google moved me up 50 spots or whatnot, and went from 10 people a day to 400 people a day, and then it started going up
from there
gradually from there. Yeah.
So I feel like most things in life are, it's like you see nothing for a while, then like boom, things like just take off. But imagine if you had quit before
Exactly.
Screw this.
Yeah.
Now you're raking it in, buying fancy chairs. I don't know what you're doing with that money. Anybody else have any questions? I know there's some in the chat, but definitely open for anybody else to just ask anything straight to Ben while he's here. And if not, that's cool too. I know that Ben, I've dropped your LinkedIn in the channel. Man, you should really be more active on LinkedIn. You have such a cool story.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just don't know if I want to or not. I'm still a little struggling with that. But yeah, I definitely have a lot more stories that I didn't share here. So
I could imagine, man. Yeah, you have I definitely would love to have you back or something. I think I might blow you up on LinkedIn. Maybe I'll just give you a quick shout out there too. That was a really, really cool in general, just your life story, and then also the fact that you have like this other side business, and now you're like a senior manager. Just very, very interesting and inspiring. Well, thanks so much for coming today. You know, well, yeah, everybody, I'll drop his LinkedIn again within here, and you know, I'm sure I'll see you around the LinkedIn streets. And thanks again, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. This was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to see
Thank
you
you,
guys.
Ben.
See y'all later. Bye-bye.